All right, here's another system explanation video, but off of Scrum. I've thrown some wrinkles into this one. So here we are. We've got a Scrum slightly outside of the 15-meter channel on the left-hand side in our A channel area. And something to point out here that I'm thinking about emphasizing in this system is just to keep things simple, playing our 7 and 6 just always on the same side of the scrum. So 7 is always on the left-hand side of the scrum, that A channel side of the scrum, and 6 is always on the right-hand side of the scrum. So 6 is always closer to his touch line that he attacks and defends, and 7 to his touch line. I think there's a good reason in professional rugby to have things more complicated systems and more specialized players. But for the most part, at our age level, I think simplicity is great. Just clean, simple. 7 is always on the left, 6 is always on the right. They're always close to their sides. And this is advice I've gotten from the coach of the Charlotte Cardinals, and they are the #1 ranked high school club team in the country. So I think he's pretty smart, a South African guy. So anyways, so here's this. Another thing that I've done, which I don't think we do enough of, is I put the 13 on the weak side. And I think oftentimes we just ignore the weak and we don't take advantage of it. So my advice in this situation like this would probably be anytime we have more than, let's say 20 meters here, we've got about 20 meters to work with, or about 15 meters to work with, to put a second guy in there. And that way we create a really simple decision for our attackers. If the defense puts 2 defenders here and marks both these guys, then this is not on and we go strong. And we have 4 attackers against 3 defenders and a ton of space, and that's a really good situation. Or if they only put 1 guy weak and they match us strong, then we go weak. So we can just kind of pick whichever side based on what the defense gives us. It's a very simple decision for our players to make, and both situations are advantageous. So anyways, this is the setup that I've gone with: 10, 12, 15, 14. And we can see again, here's 1 forward pod, here's 2nd forward pod, 7, 13, 11, 6, 12, 14, 15 slotted out here, 10's here, 9's here. Okay, so first phase, common thing that happens first phase is a 12 crash. And something we want to do is we don't want to be so pinned down by our system that we do things that don't make sense. So it makes sense for the 6 and the 8, if the 12 crashes, for both of them to hit that ruck. We'd like not to have our 10 ruck. We don't want outside backs running into rucks. That doesn't make any sense. We want inside forwards, inside players in general, and especially inside forwards to hit rucks. That way we can keep our shape and attack. So if the 6 and the 8 hit this ruck, that leaves the 15 and the 14 to maintain their width. The 10 can wrap around, and now we have a really good attacking group on this 15 meter, it's more than 15 meters, this 20 meters right here after this crash. This pod can go ahead and set itself here as an option. 1 and 4 have gone ahead and set up. They're missing 8 because he's in this ruck, but they're going to go ahead and start setting themselves. And then 13 is going to stay on his side. 7 is going to go out here, and 11 is going to go out here, and these guys are getting set and organized. I think there's an argument for, in a more complicated system, maybe having the 7 load up in this pod before the 8 gets back, and then maybe the 8 comes and he bumps, or maybe the 13 loops and hits with these guys. But for now, I don't want to get overly complicated. I'm just keeping these guys on their side. Okay? So we shift on, and then let's say off of this play, which I think is something that I try to emphasize a ton, is when we have a strong side back line and a center crashes, to try and go ahead and keep going and continue to attack the width out wide. So in this situation, my 10, 15, and 14 have gone ahead and gone with the ball. And this is a situation in which I think it most likely our 10 is going to need to ruck here, okay? So here we've got a 10 and a 15 in the ruck. 14 is in there. And then what I've done here is 12 and 6 were both in this ruck, and this is their side of the field. So they're going to stay on in their C channel. They're going to stay in there. Here I've got them threatening weak. They could also hit the ruck, but this is where they're going to stay right here. 2 and 5 have just slid into this this spot right here. 8 has been able to move to his pod now. 13, 7, and 11 are still out here threatening the width. Okay, we've got the field all spread out. All right, we can attack anywhere. And now here, this is kind of the last phase I want to talk about, because after this, we're kind of into our shape. Once the 9 plays it to the 2, 3, and 5, they crash. And now we're pretty clearly into shape. We've got our 12, 6, 14 in the C channel. We've got our 13, 7, 11 still in the A channel. We've got our 2 pods here. One is crash rucking, and the other one is the option. I've got my 10 right here. So a couple different things could happen. The 10 could continue across to here and just allow the 9 to play them. Or the 10 could slot in here as the first receiver and play it to the 1, 4, 8 in more width. Something else that could maybe happen is maybe the 10 could slot in here. And then I've left this 15 open because he could do a lot of different things. And I wanted to point out some of the things he could do. He could stay on the weak side and be a second receiver here. And maybe we could go back weak with these 4 attackers if the other team folds too much. Although oftentimes that doesn't happen. We don't usually play against defenses that overfold. We play against defenses that don't spread out quickly enough. So let's say the 10 maybe is here and the 15 runs over to here. And then the 13 reloads his depth with the 15 along with the 7 and 11. And we decide that we want to go wide fast. And so instead of having this pod get the ball, they start running, but then the 9 could play it to the 10, who could play it to the 15, who could play it to the 13, and we could attack in that width. Or another version, let's say our kind of 10, 15, 13 maybe aren't quite that smart. This is a pretty cool move. Maybe they're not quite that clever. Maybe our forwards aren't good enough to make sure they all run forward, so we'd be worried about them being in the way. And maybe maybe we've got a point player who's actually pretty good at passing. So we could just be, maybe this pod keeps their depth. 1, 4, 8. The 10 slots in. And let's say maybe the 10 plays it to the 1. And they just go ahead and pass to the 13 who's right here. And we go out wide like that. So there's a couple, these are just some kind of various ideas and options depending on the intelligence and the skill of our players. But this is another example of shape, but with some more exceptions of our basic shape. There we go.